What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the Manadorks channel. My name's Nick.
And I'm Mike.
And this is a new series we're calling Thought Scour. In these episodes, we're going to be talking about anything and everything magic, just a free-form, open-ended discussion about anything and everything.
All things we love about magic and some thoughts we have about magic, too. That's the name, Thought Scour.
Thought Scour.
Fantastic. Nick, what is our question for the day?
I was going to ask you.
Well, why don't I read it for us all?
Okay.
Our question of the day is, are Magic the Gathering colors sticking to their color identities? It seems like now colors are starting to get a little...
They're melding.
Yeah, there's some gray area between those 5 colors.
Yeah.
So we figured we'd just chat about that a little bit. Nick, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Before we go into our original thoughts, I'd like to start with, what are the colors and what do they actually do? What is their essence? So, I'd like to read these, if I may. White is uncreative, peaceful, and lawful. Blue is intellectual, omniscient, and inactive. Interesting, inactive. Black is selfish, omnipotent, and paranoid. That's pretty cool. Red is free, active, and short-sighted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and green is naive, always growing, and natural.
Those are pretty good,
Yeah,
pretty accurate.
yeah. I mean, they're from the MTG wiki, so yeah, I hope they would be. That's the color pie right there. What the colors are supposed to do.
Right.
What are your initial thoughts on that?
I think that they're all pretty accurate. There were a couple in there that you had said, and I was like, wow, that's super crazy accurate.
Yeah, like things you don't even necessarily think of, like
Right.
black being selfish.
I want to jump over to blue
Yeah.
being inactive.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because that, when we talked about that before the show, we didn't really have an idea what that meant.
Yeah. Well, after reading the whole pie and seeing that red is active, does that change your thinking on it? Because I have an idea.
I was thinking more in the sense that blue is a lot of response and instant sorceries. It's not really, you're not playing blue to play a certain type of creature per se. You know what I mean? Like
I definitely do.
You're not active when you normally would be active.
Sure.
But I don't think that's what that means.
I don't think it is. I want to go back to what you said about like counter spells and things like that, and that type of removal. I think that is the inaction in itself.
Okay.
Is that a lot of times in blue you draw a card and you play a land maybe, and you might draw a couple other cards, you might do something else, but typically you draw a card and you would pass your turn. If you have no swings or anything, not a lot of main phase plays in blue, and I think that is the inaction in itself.
Okay.
You know, you're not doing things during your turn, is being the active player, right? In terms of that judge term, active and non-active players. I think that's what it means by blue being inactive.
Okay. So I think the other ones were pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Were there any other ones in there that seemed kind of weird?
I like that white is uncreative.
Uncreative.
Which, like, kind of think is true.
Why is it uncreative?
Why is it uncreative? Well, as of now, white doesn't have a lot of card draw.
That's true.
So I think of, isn't it something like the library is, or your hand is your mind in Magic? Since you are the planeswalker, you are the mage. I think that your hand is like your mind.
Okay.
You know, that's why there's like Thought Scour, the card, is about taking cards from the library. So maybe it's the library then, is the mind. Something like that, but...
Well, that would... So our hand is our mind. The library is where we gain the knowledge of the spells.
Yeah,
to put into our mind.
The library.
Before we use them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so in that vein, white being uncreative doesn't get the knowledge and have the mental power to
It's a pretty cool
creative.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like scary, accurate, like you were saying before.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go to black. Let's talk about black.
Yeah.
Selfish, omnipotent, and paranoid. Those are some great adjectives for
paranoid.
black. Yeah. What
That's
are your thoughts
awesome.
on paranoid for black?
It's just, I don't know. When I think of that, I think of the art.
Oh yeah.
It's all like creepy and I don't know. It's just.
I think of discarding because
Yeah.
a lot of discard cards are titled something to do with the mind.
Okay.
Like mind. Now I can't think of any of them.
Because we're out live on camera.
That's
you can't
why.
think of them.
That's
yeah.
why. But you know what I'm saying? Mind Shatter, I think, is an X spell discard, and it's all about being paranoid of what the other player's mind is. The mind being the hand.
Cool.
Going back to that thought, right? So black, definitely paranoid. Selfish.
Can I, when you're done with that thought, I want to talk about something a little off topic, but really cool that I just thought about.
Is it closer to paranoid or selfish? Because I was going to talk about selfish.
It's in blue.
Oh, okay, let me just finish on
can
black.
talk about selfish.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
So black, totally selfish. I mean, the whole aristocrats strategy started in black. Like black is the color for aristocrats, sacrificing permanents, potentially getting them back for your own benefit.
Right.
You know, someone else's loss for your gain is really what black does. It even hurts you.
Selfish to your creatures.
Selfish to your creatures, selfish to yourself in terms of life total. Drawing cards so that you do lose that life.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's just so neat. All these different levels to it, being the library, the hand, the actual body with the life total, and then the creatures and protective spells in front of you.
Cool.
What a great game we play.
Good.
It's so dense. I'm so glad we have this segment where we can just chat about it.
The thing in the blue I was going to talk
please.
about it kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Blew your mind?
Yeah, because you were just talking about how the hand represents your mind. Mm-hmm. Think of the card telepathy. I can see your hand, so I'm reading your mind.
Yes.
That's the coolest thing. It makes that card 100 times better than it already is.
That's so neat.
A 1-drop blue, you can see the other person's hand forever.
Yeah,
just no one's going to get rid of that enchantment.
Mm-mm. That's so neat. Wow, you know, we're kind of switching topics here and talking about the practicality of what Magic actually is. Let's get back and remind ourselves, are these colors sticking to their color identities? Okay. So let's try to now think of some cards that might stretch that a little bit.
Core Cartographer?
Yeah,
Ramp
absolutely.
White.
Ramp in white. It's a creature that enters and searches you up a plains onto the battlefield too.
Yeah.
So let's go to white and see how that would potentially connect. Uncreative. I don't think so because you're getting something from that library.
Yeah.
Peaceful.
Peaceful.
I can't argue with that.
You can't argue with or against that.
Yeah, it's just kind of a neutral point right there. Okay, and then lawful.
Lawful. I guess you're creating land.
So Core Cartographer is a 4-drop for, I think, a 2/4. And you create the land, you kind of balance yourself out with other players. Because by turn 4, when you can play it, people are probably ahead of you if you're playing white.
Okay.
You know, because you can ramp much further ahead in green, draw more cards in blue, deal more damage in red, and build up a bigger board state in black. So that is kind of balancing and leveling the playing field, making everything a little more lawful and justified.
If there were laws in the Magic universe, what would be the breaking the law point for playing land? So playing a land for turn, that's lawful. That's what you're allowed.
Yes.
Ramping to a degree, like if I was to search for a land, that seems like it could be lawful. I'm expanding my land by 1.
Just looking.
Nyx Bloom Ancient, that's against the law. That's screwed up.
In the Magic realm, yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's like that mythic level where it is too powerful for this basic knowledge that we have. I like that thought too.
So would advancing your mana base like that be unlawful because it's not your land for turn?
In terms of Core Cartographer, searching up a land? Be unlawful?
Because, what was the word they used? Lawful?
Lawful.
Lawful. So would that be a lawful move in the Magic universe?
It's like how strict are these these boundaries.
These laws we're making up.
Well, the boundaries between color, that's what we're talking about at its essence, is when is it okay to stretch into another color, which is what white's doing here. It's kind of stretching into green a little bit.
Right.
So does that take away from its identity of being lawful? Yeah, I'd say so. It's going past those boundaries.
The boundary being 1 land per turn.
1 land per turn, yeah.
Yeah.
And what the color white is supposed to do and has always done, which is not necessarily ramp straight onto the battlefield.
Okay.
Yeah?
Cool.
I think we're on the same page there,
Yeah.
and I like that thought. Let's jump now to black, because I have one card. I always talk about this card.
I know.
And it just came out. It's really starting to break, or not break, but meld the color pie, if you will. It's Feed the Swarm, 1 and a black for a sorcery that destroys a creature or enchantment, and then you lose life equal to its converted mana cost.
Right.
So, black is selfish, omnipotent, and paranoid. I see the paranoia. I see the paranoia in the life loss. Something about that just seems like it makes sense. Like, you lose life because you are so anxious to get rid of something that could potentially harm you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're destroying the creature or enchantment.
You're not thinking about your own health and well-being when you're making these decisions.
Which is strange, because the other word to describe it is selfish. Only thinking about yourself.
Can you be selfish to yourself? Can you?
Are we still talking about magic?
I don't know.
So anyway, Feed the Swarm. The reason that it's starting to break the color pie is because it destroys an enchantment.
Yeah.
And it was, I believe, one of the first black cards to specifically target an enchantment. So I guess they're justifying it with that life loss.
Yeah.
And also with the pairing of being able to destroy a creature.
So a card like, I can't think of the name now, you draw 2, lose 2.
Sign in Blood.
Sign in Blood.
Yeah.
So if you didn't lose the 2 life, you'd be drawing 2, and then you'd be in blue.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. And there's cards in blue. I just saw it the other day. Hieroglyphic something is you draw 2 cards.
In black?
In blue. No.
Blue.
And that's what blue does. There's no downside to it. But black, you draw those cards and you have to lose the life because it's at identity.
So we're saying that this enchantment removal is breaking the color pie.
Not breaking. I don't want to say breaking because it's not that far out of the zone.
Bending the rules.
Yeah.
So you're coming into blue's territory, or
it would be white's territory,
white.
honestly.
Yeah.
White does a lot of enchantment removal, and green.
So anyway, they're bending the possibilities here for enchantment removal.
Yeah.
But you're losing that 2 life. So if you have a problem if somebody has a problem with black and enchantment removal, they have to have a problem with black and card draw, because it's the same thing.
Right. It was just established earlier.
What do you mean?
You were able to draw cards and lose life before you were able to destroy enchantments and lose life.
Right. So how is it any different now?
Right. I don't think that it is necessarily. I think now black is starting to accept that as part of its identity.
So one day black will do everything, but you're going to lose life to do it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I guess that I could potentially see that.
Yeah.
Like artifacts, we might see
a black counterspell, you lose 10 life.
Well, there are black counterspells. There's one, it's called Dash Hopes, black for an instant, and it says counter target spell, but you don't counter the spell if an opponent chooses to lose 5 life. So there's still that loss of life, but it's at your opponent's expense.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's does that card break the color pie as well? Because it's a counter spell?
Yeah.
But does that then play into the paranoia of black? Protecting yourself.
Right.
So yeah, it kind of does.
Weird.
So let's go back to our original question. Are these colors staying true to their identities? Does each color accept the identity of all of the colors in some way? Or are there just basic things that we do in Magic that are spread out among all these colors in their own unique ways? You can get rid of any permanent in any specific way in any color. Or not any specific way, but you can get rid of any permanent in any color. It's just going to tax you or benefit you based on the color you're doing that in.
So I guess there's a best color to do it.
with minimal drawback. Yes.
Right. I'm so stumped because we didn't come into this with a strong opinion or position.
Right, and I'm loving this,
Yeah.
like picking our brains, just
So
scouring our thoughts.
it's kind of tough to come up with a position right now, and because I don't know which side I'm fighting for, so I don't know which.
Let's finish the color pie.
Okay.
We got 2 more colors. Red.
Red.
Red, let me just pull up what it says because I definitely agreed with it. Red is free, active, and short-sighted.
Short-sighted, definitely.
You ever played a mono red deck and you run out of cards by turn 8? It's like, I don't know what to do now. You're short-sighted. You thought you would win in the beginning, but you didn't. So
I see it as like some of these other colors are meticulous and you plan.
Oh, yeah.
And red is just like, I have this now. There you go.
It's impulsive.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely impulsive. I'd say that going back to free, the first word that describes it, the first word I thought of was haste.
Okay.
A lot of red creatures have haste, a lot of ways to give other creatures haste in red.
That seems like another short-sighted thing too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, haste is an ability that only works on one turn.
Right.
Like all the other abilities have lasting effects. Death Touch, indestructible, but haste, it doesn't really matter after the first turn. So definitely adds to the short-sightedness. I'm trying to think if there are any cards that actually step over those boundaries or kind of cross that line.
In red.
Yeah. Well, in terms of red card draw, it has a tax of some sort. There's either looting or rummaging. Both of those have to do with draw and discard. Either you draw before you discard or you discard before you draw.
Right.
But either way, you have to discard. And typically that's seen as a negative thing. Some people see it as a good thing because they want to fill up their graveyards and they want things to play back from their graveyards. But some other people, if they're just trying to draw cards, don't necessarily want to dump other cards out of their hand. So that's a pretty red thing, being short-sighted.
Right.
So that doesn't really break the pie. But also for red, you can exile cards off the top of your library and then cast those spells this turn. So that's impulsive, like we had said before, and short-sighted because those are gone after.
Right.
If you don't play them, then you can't get them back unless you can somehow get something back from exile.
Right.
So those card draw options don't necessarily break the color pie. Now, in terms of removal, like single target removal, you have like Chaos Warp, which is really popular. You just shuffle a permanent into someone's library and then they flip the top card. If it's a permanent, it comes on the battlefield.
Right.
And that's super chaotic.
Yeah.
Right there. Chaos Warp, like that's red to a T, it seems like. That kind of anything can happen mentality.
Right.
And
that's kind of going back to that short-sightedness because you're getting rid of something that needs to go away, but then something's going to happen after that that's going to be just as bad or worse or whatever.
True. Well, now I'm thinking about active. It says red's active.
Active.
And we go back to blue being inactive. We said that was drawing and basically passing turn, working on someone else's turn.
Right.
So the opposite of that has to be doing stuff during your turn.
Right.
Do you think that's what red typically does?
I think so. I'm trying to think back to when I played my burn deck.
Should we think of them more as like responsive and unresponsive rather than active and inactive?
I don't know, because red is responsive in a different sort of way. Like in blue, you can counter and remove.
Yeah.
In red, you can burn to remove
Burn
whatever.
And target creatures.
Yeah, so it's still
active, kind of?
I guess I'm having trouble grasping what they're going for there on both sides.
Yeah, I'm going to look up what inactive means, like in the actual definition.
Okay.
Because inactive or inaction, let's go with that.
Inaction.
Because that's what it actually says on the Inaction. Okay, now of course it's not pulling anything up. Inaction is lack of action where some is expected or appropriate.
Okay.
So when is it expected that red will play? Or what red will do? During their turn, they're going to play permanents, probably swing for combat damage, try to get opponents to take damage somehow.
So it's saying that when you play red, you are active when you're supposed to be active. So
Yeah.
during your turn,
Yeah,
your main phase, whatever. And blue is pretty much whenever they feel like it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't make an argument
Sure.
for either thing because
Yeah. Well, active makes me think of just playing permanents during your turn and I was going to say doing things your way, but that more seems like blue because they're controlling the board.
yeah.
Isn't it interesting how we're really comparing red to blue? Like, are those colors really similar?
Because the way that they're putting it
Is one is active and one is inactive?
is that they're opposites.
Yeah, I guess.
And that's why we're comparing the two.
Okay, well, now that we're talking about this, I'm interested to know if you think that there's a counterpart for each color. If you think, like, there's a color that just absolutely goes against everything that the color...
So I would
opposite.
say blue and red are counterparts.
Okay.
Black and white are
Yeah,
counterparts.
yeah.
So where's green stand?
I think green is, like, just meant to be on its own.
Yeah.
Like, provide for itself, be natural, and still beat you, you know?
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, green can really provide for itself.
Did we talk about green yet?
No, we were still on red. All right,
perfect
do you have,
segue.
Well, do you have anything else to say about red?
I don't think so.
No, we've exhausted that point.
Yeah.
But red, I will say, is one of the best colors to play on its own.
On its own?
Mono red is a very direct way to win, I'll say.
It's kind of boring. We won't get into that on
Okay, that's another
on this
that's
episode.
Time, okay, we'll talk about that later. Green.
Okay.
What do you have to say about green?
Green is, can you read the terms for it?
It says, oops. Green is naive,
Naive.
growing, and natural.
Okay.
Naive seemed to catch your attention.
Yeah. So
Naive
maybe
makes me
because
think
it's
of young.
yeah, or like inexperienced maybe.
Okay.
Blind,
Blind, like careless.
careless.
Okay, I like that we're talking about this because now I'm starting to think like trample damage.
Yeah.
Would that fit into naive somehow?
Um,
What I'm thinking about is like this is a strange analogy, but like a toddler just running, or maybe a little older, just running, and then it hits something and it keeps going. I guess that happens for everybody. That's literally the law of inertia. But still, like green with trample being naive and really just like all out.
not knowing when to stop.
Yeah, and not knowing their limits, maybe.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
But being so powerful because of nature that it can kind of ram through.
Okay.
Did I make my case for that?
Kinda, yeah. Well, it's all subjective,
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
It's true.
None of this is real. It's just how we feel about it.
Yeah.
Natural. Was it natural or
Yeah,
nature?
natural.
Natural and I'm trying to put together natural and naive.
Oh, sure. Like born of the earth.
Yeah. Like, think about a dog. A dog will do whatever it wants,
Yeah.
and it won't know why it's doing it, and it won't know what the consequences are, or even what consequences are.
Yeah.
And that's naive. That's being naive. You're blind to something.
Yeah.
And that green seems to be like that.
Uh-huh.
What?
Can I?
Yeah.
So naive, now I'm thinking in terms of like vulnerable as well.
Okay.
So green is like all about swinging out,
Right.
attacking your opponents, leaving yourself vulnerable with not many blockers maybe.
Yeah.
Does that kind of go along with it?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that second word?
Yeah, we have
Growth.
Growth.
Of course, ramp.
Yeah.
Like, that's just
Oh,
obvious
I was
within.
thinking more creature growth.
Giant growth, the
giant
card.
growth, yeah.
Yeah, +3/+3.
There's a lot of that in green.
Yeah, combat tricks, make your creatures bigger.
Yeah.
Other creatures that make creatures bigger,
Yep.
you know?
Green is by itself.
It's so self-sufficient.
Yeah. There's just
Okay, can we kind of change topics here and talk
Sure,
about
yeah.
something? So we've been kind of talking about the colors just one at a time.
yeah.
I want to talk about them in terms of how they pair with other colors.
Okay.
And green got me really thinking about that because we said that green is very self-sufficient, but I'm more thinking that green is just meant to be the main color in the deck and have another color like white or maybe black to support it.
Okay.
You know, because there's some things that green can do and some things that green actually can't do very well. Like, I'm thinking of single target removal that isn't like fight spells on creatures. Like, your creature deals damage to that creature.
Yeah.
There's like an old card, Desert Twister, that's 6 mana to destroy a permanent.
Right.
You know, there's not too many options like black would have, or like white has with Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile.
Right.
You know, so it needs something else to truly survive unless you're going to be so quick that you can just win before you need to remove anything.
Okay.
You know? So
green is like the base. It's the earth.
Yeah.
What's normal for us, and then everything else is kind of the magic that's supporting it. Is what you're trying to say?
not necessarily. I think
Okay.
you're more going into like lands would be the base and then the spells are
I'm thinking more.
in deck building.
If I'm thinking of if like a green creature could be an elephant, right?
Yeah.
That's something we have here in the real world.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing really magical about that.
Okay, yeah.
But these other colors, blue, red, black, white, I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say
It's
to me.
not this.
Okay.
Because
okay.
if we were to go off of what you said, then there's humans in red and humans in white and black. You know, there are those other things.
It seems like the
But-
least magical.
Can I disagree
Magical is
with
not
you?
the right word for it.
The least sorceress.
Mythical.
Yeah.
Something.
Sure.
Like.
I do think that like poof creating creatures, big creatures is pretty magical. Tokens
Yeah.
is pretty magical, making copies of your creatures or just creating other big creatures. But green makes tokens really well with white.
Yep.
So we're back to this. I am saying that green is like the foundation. It's meant to be a main color, whereas something like white is meant to be a support color. That's my
Okay.
opinion. I think that obviously you can make a crazy good mono white deck or a white deck where white is the main focus.
Right.
But in my deck building experience, white has just been supportive. And I think
Okay.
that green is more dominant in its presence in my decks because it is more self-sufficient and has all of the options for things I need, and white can just fill in the gaps.
Okay.
So how do you feel about like black? What's a good color to pair with black to fill in for what it might be missing?
I feel like it's always white,
Yeah.
but it doesn't need to be.
Well, it's funny you say it's white because you just said that white was the exact opposite of it.
But you always see them together.
Yeah.
When I see black deck, often has white right there next to it.
Because what we said before is there's consequences for black. And white has a lot of
It's like the yin and yang kind
absolutely.
of thing. Like
White is
to
very
balance.
selfless
Yeah.
to feed black selfishness.
Yeah.
I'm thinking in terms of life gain. You gain life so that black can then take that life to draw cards.
Okay.
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not just about drawing cards, but a lot of life loss in black that white can fill in for.
Yeah.
And then you said red and blue, so I mean I think we got them all.
Yeah.
You know, we could spend a while longer and talk about colorless bring that into this. This was a great conversation, Nick.
Yeah.
I feel like we could make a whole podcast about this.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking about colorless cards?
Well,
they don't fit into any other category, or they're above everything else.
I'm gonna say they're like at the middle of the color pie.
Okay.
It's a circle with a core.
Yeah.
Or a sphere with a core, whatever you want.
Because I think about like big Eldrazi's with Annihilator. Nothing else has Annihilator.
Yeah.
When I think of Eldrazi's, I put them up there with like gods. You know what I mean?
Yes, I'm thinking more in terms of artifacts for colorless.
Okay.
Because Eldrazi seem to be like, oh man, it's so weird. Eldrazi like have that devoid. Did you ever have any cards with devoid?
Yeah.
Those are typically cards that have a color in the mana cost, and it
But
would say that
colorless.
they're colorless. Yeah. So I think of Eldrazi kind of as like their own thing. You said Annihilator.
Yeah.
Nothing else has Annihilator because it is specific to Eldrazi.
Right.
So I don't think we can lump that into colorless. It's just Eldrazi, which are a part of colorless.
So should there be another color
Well, I think it's more like,
to split that up?
I think of it in terms of Eldrazi are gray and artifacts are colorless. I might
Okay.
get some hate for that, but
Okay.
you know, the Eldrazi cards kind of have that like clear aspect to them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it's not exactly like an artifact looks
Right.
in terms of the colorlessness of the card,
Yeah.
right? So they are the same. They're both colorless. They don't have any colors in their mana cost, but there is that divide within colorless.
Do you think that maybe the Eldrazi's and the artifacts, they're like the past before everything else? That's what there was before modern Magic.
Ruined it all.
Well,
set fire
no.
to the world.
Yeah, took over.
Yeah,
Kinda.
I could see that,
But
especially with artifacts.
Yeah, like the artifacts are the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying.
And these big Eldrazi's once ruled the universe.
I'm glad you're saying this because then that brings us back to that core idea where that everything built on top of or around because of the colorless.
Right.
Oh my gosh, we should write fan fiction.
Yeah, we should.
Like for fanfic.
Or read magic lore.
Yeah, right. The story's already been written.
Yeah.
You know?
We're just talking about it blindly.
Yeah, subjectively, really. And
that's why new perspectives with the Mana Dorks.
Welcome to Thought Scour.
Welcome.
Seriously. So, I feel like my brain is exhausted.
I feel like I could take a nap after that.
Well, hopefully you've enjoyed this discussion we've had. If you have any thoughts about the color pie, cards we didn't talk about that kind of break the color pie or step over those lines, comment below, send us a direct message, let us know. Where can they find us, Nick?
themanadorksmtg.com or at themanadorksmtg everywhere but TikTok.
Yeah.
Because TikTok is the Mana Dorks, I think.
Yeah.
Something we made that one first.
Find us everywhere. Hit our YouTube channel up for other content you might have missed and be on the lookout for some more installments of Thought Scour.
Definitely. Thanks for watching.
Cool. Catch you later.